Good evening, everybody. Today evening, I had a talk uh, about how to work with anger. I mean, the topics. It's actually normal for many of you to think that this topic is a very common topic that many people discuss with and talk about. But in my talk, I was pretty much trying to understand the Buddhist point of view in a very short and sweet way into our life. Okay, so first let's understand, let's figure out the Pali, the Buddhist, which you call Pali term for anger. So Pali term for anger is dosa. Now, I should make clear at the beginning of this video the popular term in English, which you call anger. Now, the term that we understand from Buddhism, which is dosa, are two different terms. Since we have to more incline towards dosa, we need to understand the huge misunderstanding that the West and some of the Buddhist translations have at this place. Now, the problem comes up when we get to know the Western version of anger. Now, in the West, some certain forms of anger are okay. For example, like when there is an injustice happens to someone, the other people getting angry, they publicly say we're very angry about this injustice, unfair situation, unfair treatment. So that means anger, the word anger and the whole bunch of emotions attached to anger could not be dosa, because dosa in the Buddhist teachings is not actually endorsed, approved at any time. So there is something lacking in the word called anger. It's not a problem in English. It's a problem that has happened in the translations. So when we study further about the term called dosa, we can see that the word called hostility. We can combine this thing in this way. Hostile anger is more accurate to talk about dosa. Now, you probably think about anger has some sort of hostility, but the thing is that anger does not always include that hostility. Sometimes it's not, sometimes it is. So I would probably say that those could be better translated as hostile anger. But as many people know, those are to be anger. I would use anger at this point in my talk. But keep in mind, when you have a very deep conversation with somebody from Buddhist, non-Buddhist traditions, you better use hostile anger. It's not just the anger that you can use to translate dosa. Okay, now you know what is basically the good term for dosa. Now we got to find out what does this dosa include. Now, for example, we know it ranges from minor annoyances to full-blown anger, right? Any type of annoyances to the full-blown anger can be taken as anger, right? Now, why does anger arise in us? Now, when we further study about the main primary causes of anger, we may find that it is mostly because of fear and hurt. So usually when we have a lot of insecurities, when we are really scared and feared of things and whatever situations, and then we could get angry quicker, faster. Also, we feel like we may get hurt, and that's one of the reasons why we may get angry. Probably we may get hurt, probably we already hurt, probably we're going to be hurt, right? So all these things actually pertain to hurt. So fear and hurt could be the most reasons of why people getting angry. Now let's take a look at what does Buddha talk about working with anger. Now Buddha says, now the as you know, basically the best treatment to anger is metta, loving kindness. But it is just a abstract name. You should have a practical methodology to put metta in action. That's why we find in the Buddhist teachings this non-reactive mindfulness meditation to work with anger. That's a very interesting thing to do. Now when I say meditation, some of you might think that this could be something that we do in a formal setup, that we sit down and put our right palm, the left palm, and close eyes and something like that. But that's a certain practice. But when it comes to this non-reactive mindfulness meditation, it's something that we need to do all the time, at all times. Because we never know when we're getting angry. We never know where we're getting angry, right? So because of that, we need to keep this momentary non-reactive mindfulness, meditation to work with. Important thing to understand, because we never investigate anger deeply through resultant emotions, thoughts, and body. For example, like when you angry, you could feel things happening, something going on inside of your body. Probably your heartbeat is so fast. You having heavy breath. You may have some chest pain inside of you, some kind of tightness. All these physical different changes you can actually study. You need to study about, investigate those physical changes that happen simultaneously with this anger. And also you could see what kind of emotion, what kind of a roller coaster of emotions going on after you getting angry, or when you're getting angry. Also your thoughts, what kind of monkey mind, what kind of thoughts in your monkey mind exist and continue when you're angry. When it comes to the real practice with this non-reactive mindfulness meditation, you could honestly and non-reactively turn your mind away from the object of anger. So this is what we should do in the first place. When you feel you are angry, you're getting angry, you will be angry, you got to actually look at, first you need to turn your mind away from the object of anger, and then to study the source of anger, why it arises, right? Why it could probably arise in the next moment, probably next week, next month, or for whatever the reason. And also you need to further investigate the subjective experience attached to anger or dosa. So keep in mind, there are three things to do with your three things that you need to do when you going to put this non-reactive mindfulness meditation in action for managing anger. The first thing is you need to turn your mind away from the object of anger to study the source of anger, the source of why this anger came out. And also you need to investigate the subjective experience attached to that, right? Now this is very important, because if we can actually turn our mind away from the objects of anger, and at the same time if you can study the source of the anger, and at the same time if you can actually see the subjective experience to formally transform it into an objective experience, then I think we are very good. I'm actually really hopeful that you could actually handle this anger in the first place. But what if that if you for some reasons let it actually grow inside of you, then you need to actually do the same thing, and then you could probably stop that continuing inside of you, right? So the best thing to do is this non-reactive mindfulness meditation for working with your anger. So first, once again, I'm going to actually repeat these 3 steps. First, try to turn your mind away from the object, right? If you're gonna let it be with the object of anger, it's really dangerous. So you're gonna actually turn your mind away from the object, and then you're gonna study the source, why it happens, why this anger comes up to me. And at the end, you need to investigate the subjective experience and how I feel that. You can actually exclude yourself, you can actually separate you from the source object experience. Then you can actually handle anger really good. So that's what I actually talked about today. So I hope you understood the Buddhist way to handle this periodical, momentary, day-to-day life anger. Even as I told you, even the abstract virtue of anger is metta, loving kindness, but you should have a practical methodology to deal with that, work with anger. That practical methodology was something that I taught in 3 ways. So that is non-reactive mindfulness meditation. Try to put that in practice, and you will be able to actually handle anger in the first place. And that is our hope, that you will do that, and then you will minimize the danger, harm, from letting this bad energy open inside of you. Okay, thank you so much. Have a good night.